Glenn Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630. WMAL.
It is 7:37. Now, this hour has sort of been dedicated to what I think are the two biggest problems facing America right now. First, what are we going to do in Afghanistan, and what are we going to do to fight terrorism? The second thing is what are we going to do about our economy, which is just absolutely in the dumps right now. And as Mary Catherine Ham has so elegantly put it, yesterday the CBO put out a holy crap report, which really had some very sort of scary things. And to talk about that, who better to bring us wit, wisdom, and knowledge than Stuart Varney from the Fox Business Channel. Hey, Stuart, how are you?
Good morning, Brian. I'm well. How about you?
Doing very well. Okay, look, this report that came out yesterday from the CBO says that before Obama's stimulus became law, federal debt equaled 36% of the GDP. All right, that sort of sounds bad enough to me. But by the end of this year, debt will reach 70% of GDP, the highest percentage since World War II, largely as a result of the Obama stimulus plan. And remarkably yesterday, astonishingly, beyond belief, some Senate Democrats were talking about the need for additional stimulus spending.
Yeah.
Stuart, I just opened the floor. Just tell us how crazy that is.
Well, that really shocked me. When Senator Durbin and Senator Reid came out and publicly demanded more infrastructure spending, more government spending, literally moments after the CBO had outlined the extent of our debt crisis, and it is a crisis. That was a shocking juxtaposition of political irresponsibility. How can you possibly read a report that says we've got a huge debt crisis on our hands, and a report, by the way, which underestimated the extent of the debt crisis, and then go out and say, well, we're going to ignore that for now. Jobs are the priority, and the way to get jobs is to spend more government money. This is political and economic lunacy, and I hate to sound harsh, but that's exactly what it is.
It just boggles the mind, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does.
And yesterday we had Bernanke speaking. Any thoughts on what he had to say? Because I know that the reaction in the market was not good.
Look, yesterday, Ben Bernanke came out and said, look, it's not a bump in the road. This is not a blip. This is not a mere temporary slowdown because of factors like Japan or the weather. This is a trend, a weakening trend in the economy. That was a direct contradiction of the administration's view of what's happening with the economy. And here we have the most important money man in the world saying, no, you basically, you got it wrong. We've done all we can. It's now up to you to take the reins and do something about this economy. I mean, we've had a series of shocks. I'm calling it a June swoon for the economy and President Obama's record on the economy. Every single indicator this month has pointed towards a rapidly slowing economy, a rapidly rising debt load on us, and we have the complete absence of a new policy by the administration to deal with it, except for Senators Durbin and Reid who come out and say, let's double down, let's do more of the same, let's spend some more money, which we don't have.
All right, with Bernanke's comments yesterday, and he's usually pretty measured, but I agree with you. I mean, if you just read between the lines, it seems like he's very concerned about the economy right now. With the CBO report that came out yesterday, those are two things that I would think would help the Republicans make their case that, hey, we better do something here when it comes to cutting and to getting, the debt in order, or at least something responsible in the next couple of months, especially with this debt ceiling. Does that give them any momentum into these debt negotiations that are taking place with the White House right now?
I think it does. I think it's given them some backbone. You can lean back and say, now look, if you don't see it our way, if you don't really cut in the trillions over a given period of years, look what's going to happen. You're going to have a debt crisis. I was intrigued to see Senator Conrad, Democrat, come out yesterday and say, look, we've really got to start talking about cutting $4 trillion.
Yes.
That was a very interesting statement from a man in the Democrat Party. I think, however, that the administration is going to push back and say, no, what we've got to do is to raise revenue.
Yeah.
That's going to be their pushback on this, their political and economic pushback.
Well, I noted earlier the CBO report reads like a Ryan press release, and it's not because the CBO is full of hacks. It's because Ryan's telling the truth.
Yes, but, that CBO report actually underestimated the extent of the debt crisis.
Oh, that's great.
They were saying, look, our debt held by the public is $9.7 trillion. Well, that ignores the trillions of dollars in debt of the Social Security Administration, which takes your actual full debt up to $14.3 trillion, which is about the size of the U.S. economy. In other words, we owe as much as our economy is worth per year. Now, that's a danger zone. I mean, you're getting pretty close to some of those crazy European levels.
I wanted to ask one thing about what Bernanke said. I don't know if he said it yesterday, but he said it before in the past. And the Democrats use this to, try and make their case that, hey, we can't go too drastic. But Bernanke essentially has said, hey, you don't want to cut, way too much because you don't want to cut off the oxygen for the economy. You still want growth more than anything else. And let's not go too crazy with the hatchet right off the bat. Let's do it slowly over time.
Yes. And I think most economists, most people in the financial world would agree with that. You don't want to cut $1 trillion tomorrow morning. If you did, it would have a profound
I don't think there's
effect.
any danger of that.
No, I don't think there's any danger of that. Mary Catherine, you are absolutely right. That's not going to happen. But I think what everybody really wants is a long-term plan. Cast iron, set in stone. We're going to do this. Or we're going to cut significantly according to a long-term plan.
Yeah, but we know how that. But you know what we do though with long-term plans? We can't do that. I mean, it's like 1 year or 2 years at the most, and then there's a new Congress that comes in and things can change. I mean, is it even possible to have a 10-year plan to get rid of our debt?
I think there would be some reassurance if you at least had the plan in place and agreed to. Understood, you can overturn it with the next Congress or the next president. That's all understood. That's known as you go into this thing.
Right.
But you got to have a plan, and you've got to agree to it, and it's got to be long-term, and that's a good starting point.
And here's what you also have to have. You have to have the political will to do the hard things. I read an article today about the Greece situation in which they said the real problem in Greece is there's a lack of political will to do the hard things. And I was struck by that line, and it also struck me that you could say probably the same thing about the American political system. We all know that the crisis is coming, but we don't seem to have the political will to do the difficult things. It gets too hard.
But do we have the political leadership which is telling us what we must do?
Well, right now the answer is no.
I mean, Ronald Reagan came along and he put through a series of extremely harsh measures. He allowed Paul Volcker to jack up interest rates and make the recession worse. He did that. And all the time he was saying, look, in the future, things are going to get better. It's going to be morning in America. There is no such political leadership of real strength that I see at the moment saying something similar. If we had that leadership, I'd be a lot more sanguine about where we're going with this economy.
All right, Stuart, always good to talk to you. Thanks. We'll be watching later this morning.